Hello and welcome again to another after action report of Smolensk Babarossa Derailed, the OCS one mapper of the Eastern Front covering the campaign towards Smolensk in the opening phases of Operation Babarossa. I've already run through this campaign once before, and you'll find that in my previous video. So I gave a little bit of an introduction of the system back there, so if you want a bit more detail about that, you can go back to that video. So this is just a really brief, off-the-cuff train of thought around what this campaign was like, and my continued evolution of my thoughts on this edition of the OCS system. First off, I'm still very satisfied with this game. I think it's one that I'll come back to and again, as it's tremendously engrossing and very quite approachable. I think it's fast becoming my favorite of my collection of OCSs. So this particular one ended in a victory for the Germans. This might be obvious from where you can see the front line is. And that was due to basically the tremendous number of losses, as you can see here, that suffered by the Soviets. So there's a lot of asymmetry in this game. And one of the asymmetries is that the Soviets have much lower quality units, but just a huge number of them, so they can afford to take a lot of losses. But even though they have a huge number of units, there's not an infinite number of units. And if the Germans can play in such a way as to take out a certain number of them, it does actually start to create a sort of phase transition on the front line, and that's kind of what happened here. In terms of the specific axis of advance, this main line towards Smolensk went pretty well, although it took a long time for Orsha to fall. One little thing that I found made it a lot easier, which I don't think I did this in the first game. I think I waited until Orsha fell before I kept on advancing, but because there are clear terrain hexes around Orsha, you can just leave it surrounded and still successfully and effectively throw supply forward, so you can continue pushing the front line even though Orsha hasn't fallen. I put a lot of force in the north and had an excellent line of advance here through Demidov. And once Demidov falls, then the whole of the Smolensk position is compromised, because it opens up these plains here and allows Smolensk to be cut off. But it's also important to cut it off from the other side, where this bridge came in extremely useful. There are 3 tokens that the Germans get to place either airstrips or bridges, and the bridges work as if there was literally a road crossing it. So it's not like an HQ bridge, which can only be used for movement. It can be used for supply as well. The Germans were stuck for a very long time, even right down towards mid-August, around here, around Khrushchev. This is actually a very tough nut to crack because it's surrounded by difficult terrain. So it's very hard to surround, and the Soviets can just, and it's also right near an entry point, a supply source. So the Soviets can just keep on sending in reinforcements, and it's very difficult for the Germans to surround it, as the units that are on this side you can't really get supply to. What I found was actually that the key to making Khrushchev fall was to knock this position out here, which I'd left for quite a long time. But when you knock that out, it opens up this road, which opens up a way to keep units that you use to surround Khrushchev supplied. once that was done, the whole position fell through and just collapsed. And then huge number of German infantry divisions just made their way up through the south. I don't think the Germans would have won if it hadn't been for that. That was pretty critical to the whole thing. Soviets just didn't have as much success as they did in my last campaign with their counterattacks either. I did use their ability to go off map and then back on to speed up their movement to handle different threats quickly. And they did actually use that quite effectively up here in the north, where they'd actually had started to build a bit of momentum towards counterattacks. So they'd actually isolated some German units up here, and were definitely threatening this area here. But yeah, mainly they were hamstrung by the just catastrophic losses that they lost earlier on in the campaign. And when you are outnumbered by your opponent, it's not that hard for them, especially in where there's a lot of open terrain, to just drive you back just by compromising your position and not necessarily attacking you front on. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say about this. I'll definitely come back to this. I would love to play this against a human opponent at some point. But yeah, I do like just deepening my experience of single games. So what's next? So I've got a couple of games lined up. One of them is a dedicated solitaire game, Levé en Masse from Worthington Games, which is, I think, a States of Siege game by John Welsh. And another game which was kindly donated to me by a friend, Campaigns of Napoleon by Kevin Zucker, which I'll play solitaire. That's a 2-player game, but I'll give it a go solitaire just to get an idea of how the system works. Yeah, that'll be it. Smolensk Babarossa Derailed.